November 20th, 2023, Italy's most dangerous gang, the 'Ndrangheta, finally got a taste of justice with over 230 convictions. A massive blow to the untouchable? Maybe. But when you're up against a Hydra, cutting one head might not be the end game.
The town is under constant attack by cultists.
These are some of the most dangerous gangs in the world. Black Axe. Forget the cheesy Nigerian prince emails. The real online underworld is way darker. We're talking about a vast criminal empire where people swap blueprints to steal your money. And at the top of this twisted food chain, the Black Axe. These guys aren't just some basement hackers. Black Axe is a Nigerian group with their fingers in everything: human trafficking, brutal killings, and dominating the online crime scene.
A secret death cult is thriving in Nigeria, more terrifying than anything. They've been accused of countless murders.
They call themselves Axemen, and they use the internet like a twisted clubhouse. There they exchange gruesome photos of murders and brag about taking down their enemies. Their global reach brings them billions every year. 2017, authorities in Canada stumbled upon a Black Axe money laundering scheme worth over $5 billion. But that didn't miss a beat after it was found. How did they become this powerful? The 1970s. It all started with 9 students from the University of Benin, led by Nicholas Edamuja, who took it upon themselves to start a brotherhood of men with a main point on intellectual radicalism in pursuit of Pan-African struggles. Their symbol? A black axe chopping through colonial chains. As the group expanded and violence increased, the members decided to separate the Black Axe from the University of Benin. The leaders connected with the Neo-Black Movement, or NBM. This became a prominent group at many other universities in the 80s. The NBM is still around today and is legally registered with the Nigerian Corporate Affairs Commission. Yet the leaders of the NBM claim Black Axe is a rogue breakaway group and are adamant that the NBM opposes all criminal activity. However, international law enforcement has a different view. Statements by the U.S. Justice Department say the NBM is a criminal organization and part of the Black Axe. Similar statements have been made by authorities in Canada. Now today, Black Axe's reach extends to Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and beyond. They've got over 30,000 members, all organized into zones with local bosses who rake in cash and send it back to HQ in Nigeria. Now the gang has even formed alliances with local mafias in places of historic gang membership, like in Italy. Back in Nigeria though, they're known as a cult. Think secret rituals and blood oaths. They're brutal, and anyone who gets in their way ends up, well, let's just say their social media presence is full of disturbing warnings.
Say they're coming. Just trust they'll come. Because these are people who love killing.
In a chilling BBC report, a former Black Axe member recounts the nightmares that plagued him. It's not grisly sights or echoes of gunfire that torment him. It's the way people beg for mercy when they die. But despite its violent reputation, Black Axe's main income stream is still cyber fraud. They're the masters of deception, running romance scams, inheritance cons, real estate swindles, and even business email frauds. Reports say that over the past decade, Black Axe has become one of the most far-reaching and dangerous organized crime groups in the world. You might have an email from them in your inbox. Now, how do they recruit members? Well, Black Axe is over 40 years old. They prey on desperation. They go for university students in Nigeria, a country with sky-high unemployment, promising a better life. But the price of entry is a nightmare initiation ritual called bamming. 2016, an ex-member described this experience online. He thought he was attending a party, but he ended up being stripped and beaten in the mud. They took turns whipping his skin raw with bamboo, beating him close to unconsciousness. The agony eventually stopped, only for a series of rituals to follow, including crawling through the legs of his tormentors, a tradition known as the Devil's Passage, before drinking blood from a cut on his thumb and chewing a cola nut, a caffeinated nut native to West Africa. To the echoes of songs and chants, he was then embraced by men who had just tortured him, telling him that he'd been reborn as what they call an Axeman.
I've seen dates of past dates. I'm not African dates.
We think Africa has seen enough of Black Axis cruelty, and our next stop is East Asia. Now brace yourselves, because things might just get even worse there. 14K. Hong Kong, a city of gleaming skyscrapers and bustling streets. But don't be fooled, it's not all glitz and neon. Lurking beneath the city's dazzling facade is a shadow. The 14K Triad, one of the world's most ruthless criminal empires. Their bread and butter? Selling heroin and opium sourced from China and Southeast Asia. But their criminal activities don't stop there. They're known for illegal gambling, predatory lending, money laundering, and even murder for hire. Their criminal empire extends to arms trafficking, human trafficking, and even the occasional robbery that disrupts the peace of a quiet home. 1947, surprisingly, the 14K organization was established as a military association to support the efforts of the Nationalist Party and combat communism. Now, the group was started with 14 members, hence the name, but quickly expanded to thousands of participants. Now, as they say, power corrupts. But with absolute power, well, it didn't take long for them to establish a massive criminal empire. Now today, they're rumored to be the biggest and most dangerous of all East Asia crime gangs with a huge number of members. Their longevity is credited to a rigid pyramid hierarchy and a keen eye for sniffing out undercover stings. Not to mention there's a global appetite for their illicit offerings, heroin, unauthorized immigration, and gambling. That's kept them thriving for years. The 14K Triad is essentially just made up of several sub-triads that are only symbolically part of the triad as a whole, through having similar organizational structures and personal networks. Now they're decentralized and highly flexible, and don't have one boss calling the shots. And that's where they differ from other syndicates. How, you ask? Well, let's break down the traditional triad hierarchy. At the top sits the 489, or the Sanchu, the big boss. Right below is the second in command, split into two roles. The Vanguard, who handles recruiting, and the Incense Master, who leads ceremonial rituals. Going down the line are the Red Poles, or 426s, who enforce the rules. The 415, or White Paper Fans, who handle administrative tasks. And the 432, or Straw Handles, who mediate between other triads. Any member below this point is simply called a soldier or 49. Now, compared to other triad societies, the 14K is one of the biggest and most violent gangs in Hong Kong. Now, this happens because members are more loosely connected than other triads, and so the violence within the 14K factions gets out of hand real easily, because no one can control all the different factions worldwide. Now, who are they targeting for recruitment? The youth. In places like California, 14K recruiters can be seen, luring teens in places densely populated by Asians, like San Francisco and Orange County. Now back in Hong Kong, they target poor areas like Kowloon, Kwun Tong, or Tuen Mun, as well as specific schools. And now you're asking, can nobody stop them? Or should I say want to? The 14K is incredibly powerful, with government officials even known to assist them over the years. Surprisingly, this is not a new phenomenon. 1984, the Chinese Communist Party or CCP leader, Deng Xiaoping, made headlines by openly supporting collaboration with organized crime. He praised their patriotism, integrity, and business savvy. Since then, the triads like 14K have been known to provide protection for CCP officials overseas. In exchange, the government conveniently turns a blind eye to their shady dealings, including drug and wildlife smuggling. And so, over time, they've become so bold that they're acting like government officials themselves. 2020, one of the former leaders of 14K, Wan Kwok Koi, aka Broken Tooth, took on the role of a diplomat. He met with the president of Bougainville in Papua New Guinea to discuss setting up a new economic zone on the island. The gang's goal? To contribute to China's ambitious One Belt One Road trade network in the South Pacific. However, authorities are concerned that these new regions could become hotspots for smuggling drugs, guns, and other black market products. Despite its notoriety, the 14K Triad is actually the second largest triad group in the world, boasting around 20,000 members divided into 30 subgroups. Now, who holds the title of the largest? Sun Yee-on. In the shadowy corners of Hong Kong and beyond, a name whispers through the alleys and back rooms. Sun Yee-on. According to its devoted members, it's the New Righteousness and Peace Commercial and Industrial Guild, a triad with a legacy as dark as it is deep. 1919, founded by Huan Qin, Sun Yee-on is estimated to have over 56,000 members worldwide today. It operates not only in Hong Kong and China, but extends to places like the UK, the US, France, and Belgium. Although they're older than the 14K, the term triad has actually been common in China since the 17th century. Initially fueled by a mission to restore the Ming Dynasty, their efforts failed, but they persisted into the modern day. Operating discreetly, they engaged in black market activities to sustain themselves for centuries. By the 1960s, approximately 1/6 of Hong Kong's population belonged to these secret societies. Traditionally, triads were supposed to embrace honor and serve as alternatives to corrupt systems. However, Sun Yee-on stands apart from the norm. Its members prioritize self-preservation and wealth. During World War II, they betrayed their own code of so-called patriotism and collaborated with the Japanese to preserve themselves and their power. By the 1970s, Sun Yee-on became a formidable criminal organization with a membership of around 45,000. And by the 80s and 90s, it was even dominating Hong Kong's film industry.
我就話嚟到現場俾5萬佢哋，跟住每日俾5000，臨拆境嗰日就要俾3萬，如果唔係就燒報警。
Today, the triad runs many vice establishments in areas like Tsim Sha Tsui and Yau Ma Tei. These places are hotspots for illegal activity, like vice offenses, money laundering, and of course, organizing and carrying out hits. And just like the 14K, the influence of the Sun Yee-on gang reaches high-ranking government officials in the region. While the exact annual revenue of the gang remains a mystery, it's believed to be in the hundreds of billions. Law enforcement believes that most of that money comes from controlling over 10% of the global heroin supply. Now, recently, it's been revealed that Sun Yee-on has formed connections with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. In exchange for providing Mexicans with weapons and materials for making meth, the triads get cocaine for the Chinese market and help smuggle Asian nationals into the U.S. through Sinaloa's network. And as their reach continues spreading like wildfire across continents, law enforcement scrambling to fight back. But with such influence, the battle lines are far from clear. Yamaguchi Gomi. No doubt the Yakuza in Japan stand among the deadliest gangs worldwide. They're not just criminals, they're architects of terror. Their trademark, severed pinkies, is a chilling testament to their brutality. But within this formidable group, even more formidable factions emerge, and this is one of them. The Yamaguchi Gomi Yakuza is known as one of Japan's most feared crime syndicates. Despite being a prime target for law enforcement, they've managed to evade capture for years. Operating from a fortress-like headquarters, they hold the title of the world's largest and wealthiest gang, with an estimated value of $6 to $10 billion. Now, some even compare them to Japan's second-largest private equity firm. Using a network of hospitality workers, they would gather inside trading information and use it to their advantage. They would also blackmail powerful politicians and executives to further their criminal activities. But what if I told you now that the Yamaguchi Gomi are involved in legitimate businesses and humanitarian groups alongside their illegal operations? Now, they actually have a strong presence in Japan, complete with office buildings, business cards, fan magazines, and even comic books detailing their exploits. Now, the stark contrast to their origins as a labor union formed by dock workers in the early 20th century Kobe is quite surprising. But it's not the only surprising thing about them. These members defy stereotypes by avoiding tattoos and refraining from finger amputation to avoid gang affiliation. Gang warfare and shootouts have also decreased significantly because of the harsh penalties associated with firearm possession in Japan. These extra precautions they take make it harder for police to track the new generation of Yakuza. And despite facing stricter laws in Japan, the Yamaguchi Gomi is still making moves across Asia and even reaching into the US. Rumor has it that they're eyeing Tokyo as their next target for expansion, a territory that's never been touched by them before, as they've known to operate in other Japanese cities. Now, it's said that the Yamaguchi Gomi is currently facing internal division, leading to formations of smaller factions that are expanding their influence and potentially becoming more ruthless. 2015, about 3,000 members broke away from the Yamaguchi Gomi, led by Kunio Inoue, after getting kicked out for not being loyal to the boss. Now, the split happened because of disagreements over how the former gang chief was collecting money. This new group, called the Kobe Yamaguchi Gomi, was formed with the idea of not having a single boss calling the shots. The Kobe Yamaguchi Gomi are now 3,000 members, while the original Yamaguchi Gomi boasts around 23,400. The split within the gang raised concerns about a potential gang war, as past divisions have led to violent conflicts in Japan with shootings, deaths, and big financial losses. So we're going to leave Japan now and head towards South America, specifically Brazil, where this ruthless gang formed by prisoners is causing chaos. The PCC.
PCC is responsible for some of the most violent terror attacks that Brazil has ever seen.
The PCC, aka the First Capital Command, started in Brazil's notoriously brutal penitentiaries 30 years ago, but now controls a billion-dollar drug trade, supplying much of Europe's cocaine.
Based in Sao Paulo and with over 30,000 members, this violent organization have massacred police, murdered judges, and shut down entire cities.
August 1993, the PCC started with a group in prison that offered protection to inmates, like Venezuelans, in Brazil's overcrowded and violent jails. Now, these prisons were pretty awful, with about 50,000 prisoners living in terrible and inhumane conditions. 1992, the world saw the chaos in Brazil's prisons when 111 inmates were killed in a riot at Sao Paulo's Carandiru prison. Some were shot, others were attacked by police dogs. Survivors had to hide under dead bodies to stay alive. After this horrific event, inmates at another Sao Paulo prison, Taubaté, formed the PCC to protect themselves from more violence and, well, to protect their own criminal interests. Now, the current leader of the PCC, Marcos Williams Edebas Camacho, later said, "The PCC was founded because there was nowhere to run." And so the PCC's original goal of gaining control of prisons to protect inmates ended up evolving into safeguarding their own criminal operations. 3 decades after its formation, the PCC's impact is still crystal clear. It's become Brazil's most feared gang, dominating drug markets, smuggling routes, slums, and prisons across the country, even reaching remote areas of the Amazon. Now, the group has also expanded its influence to other South American countries like Paraguay, where it's been linked to major crimes like armed robbery, bombings, and targeted assassinations. 2016, the PCC, now recognized by the US as one of the world's most dangerous organized crime groups, began to look beyond Brazil. They formed alliances with Italy's 'Ndrangheta mafia, as well as Serbian and Albanian mafias, to transport large quantities of cocaine from Brazilian ports to Europe. Today, the PCC has tens of thousands of members and has diversified its interests, including illegal gold mines in the Amazon. Now, the group controls a crucial trafficking route connecting Bolivia and Brazil to Europe and Africa, contributing to a surge of cocaine-related violence in Europe. According to prosecutor Lincoln Gaquilla from Sao Paulo's Organized Crime Task Force, the PCC plays a significant role in the international cocaine trade. He's estimating the group takes in around $1 billion annually, primarily from trafficking operations. He said, "If someone's using cocaine in France, England, or Spain, there's a very good chance it got there through the hands of the PCC." But the PCC isn't the only prison gang we're going to be talking about today. Aryan Brotherhood. The Aryan Brotherhood, aka the brand, Alice Baker, AB or 1-2, is the nation's oldest major white supremacist prison gang and a national crime syndicate. AB chapters can be found in major federal and state prisons across the country. As a crime syndicate, they take part in drug trafficking, male prostitution rings, gambling, and extortion inside prison walls. On the streets, they're practically involved in everything, including murder for hire, armed robbery, gun running, methamphetamine manufacturing, heroin sales, counterfeiting, and identity theft. But how did it all start? You see, back in the 60s, when prisons were being desegregated, things quickly got tense, and violent clashes erupted between black and white inmates. In 1964 at San Quentin in California, a group of Irish bikers decided to take matters into their own hands, calling themselves the Diamond Tooth Gang, because they wore shards of glass in their teeth. They would eventually merge with other white inmates to form the Aryan Brotherhood, the first major supremacist prison gang in the country.
We were seeing our own kind punked out, treated like just white folks didn't stick together.
And by the 70s, the AB was spreading like wildfire throughout California prisons. And as some high-ranking AB leaders were sent to federal prisons, they seized the opportunity to expand into the federal penitentiary system. Their numbers continue to grow as they swallow up these racist skinhead gangs. And today they're estimated to be around 20,000 members, both inside and outside prison. Their reach really extends far beyond prison walls. 1992, a major power shift happened. Mafia boss John Gotti needed protection in prison, so he hired the AB. This ended up being AB's golden ticket, giving him a powerful ally and a foothold in major cities across the country. And while the AB has this strong white supremacist ideology, money talks louder than hate. These guys are all about profit, and they'll work with anyone who puts cash in their pockets, doesn't matter their race. And you know what's truly chilling here? Despite being a tiny fraction of the prison population, the AB is responsible for a staggering 18% of all prison murders. That's a lot of blood on their hands. But their motto is simple: blood in, blood out. And to join this brotherhood, there's a brutal initiation. You must make your bones, basically attack or kill a rival gang member or even a corrections officer. That's the blood in their motto, while blood out means that once you're in, there is no getting out. Death is the only escape. The Latin Kings. They're one of the biggest and most feared Hispanic street gangs in the whole of the United States, with strange and distinct cult ideologies and rituals. Back in 1954 in Chicago, a group of Puerto Ricans led by Ramon Santos banded together to form what they called the Imperials. It was a time of racial tension, and these guys were looking for respect and protection against discrimination. But as the years went on, this group, now known as the Latin Kings, morphed into something darker and much more dangerous.
So it was in 1995 when I got involved. It was because of the name, because of the weight that name carried.
Today, the Latin Kings are one of the largest Latino street gangs, not just in the Windy City, but across the globe, with a staggering membership of around 20 to 35,000 members in Chicago alone. They've got a presence that can't be ignored, and it's not just numbers, it's their reach. 41 U.S. states and even beyond, to Canada, Ecuador, Italy, and Spain. And in the world of organized crime, the Latin Kings are jack of all trades, masters of, well, many. They're deep in drug trafficking, peddling everything from cocaine to cannabis on the streets, and their penchant for violence is well known, with a track record for murder, assault, and armed robbery that keeps law enforcement on high alert. But it's not all brute force. They've got their hands in financial crimes as well, like identity theft and money laundering. Now, what truly sets the Latin Kings apart is their own unique set of rules and religious beliefs. They're highly organized, with a strict hierarchy and chapters spread throughout the U.S. They even have a crown council to resolve disputes, acting kind of like a gang court.
Openly talk about the nation with the fervor of religion.
The God ain't helping me, so I come to my nation to help me, you know, and my nation is like a God to me, you know?
Here's the crazy part. The Kings have a whole code of conduct they must follow, laid out in a massive constitution. They have their own religion, called Kingism, which is a mix of gang loyalty and some mystical beliefs. They even have a King Manifesto talking about what they believe are the 3 stages of life. It starts with the primitive stage, where young warriors act on instinct, seeking thrills and street cred. Then comes the conservative stage, where the wariness of street life sets in, leading many to retire into a life that's still constrained by societal prejudices. Then comes the new king stage, where enlightenment kicks in. Here they awaken to the need for a mental revolution, striving for knowledge and freedom for the oppressed. Now, what about breaking the rules? Well, the Latin kings have an entire system for that as well. If a member messes up, another member can file a violation form. Then there's a hearing, and if they're found guilty, punishment can range from fines and community service to beatings or even death. Soltsevskaya Bratva. When you peel back the layers of modern Russian history, you can't overlook the turbulent 1990s, a time when law and order seemed to vanish overnight. And that makes sense because the Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia was grappling with its newfound freedom. But with that freedom came chaos. In the south, Chechen rebels were stirring up trouble. A few bold generals even tried to turn back the clock to the Cold War days, sending tanks down Moscow streets, a sight not seen since the Second World War. And the Russian citizens? They were left wondering if their paychecks would ever arrive. Amidst this turmoil, a crime wave swept across the country. The rule of law was replaced by the rule of the gun, as criminal syndicates carved out their territories. And in the thick of it all stood the Soltsevskaya Bratva, the Soltsevo Brotherhood. The late 1980s, Sergei Mikhailov, a former waiter who spent time in prison for fraud, founded the Soltsevskaya gang. From the Soltsevo district of Moscow, they recruited the desperate and the daring, young men with nothing to lose. They even made use of the thief-in-law, Zemel Katsidze, to enhance their reputation amongst established criminals. Now in Russia, thief-in-law was used to refer to a criminal with a high status within the organized crime community. This title is not just a label, it's a recognized position that comes with authority and respect amongst other criminals. A thief-in-law typically follows a code of conduct specific to the criminal underworld and has a significant influence both in and out of the prison systems. And so with that, the Soltsevo started to gain both notoriety and respect. Strategically positioned near key transport routes, the Soltsevo district was a gateway to power for the gang. They seized control of the car import market, thanks to their hold over the M3 highway to Ukraine, Moscow's Ring Road, and even the Vnukovo International Airport. But by the early 90s, the Soltsevo faced a new threat, the Chechen Mafia. In response, they forged an alliance with the Orekhovskaya gang and other Slavic mobs, determined to push the Chechens out of Moscow. The ensuing gang war was brutal. One notorious shooting at the Kazakhstan cinema left 10 dead, 6 Chechens and 4 Russians. As the echoes would fade from the fall of the Union, the Soltsevo gang capitalized on the disorder. They cozied up to politicians, gaining influence over the Russian state, even laundering their dirty money through legitimate businesses like banks, casinos, and even airports. The 1990s saw Soltsevskaya expand their reach into the U.S. Vyacheslav Ivankov headed to Brighton Beach, while Mikhail Odenusa took over Atlanta's underworld. The FBI caught wind of Ivankov and eventually brought him down. But Odenusa, he's been running the show in Atlanta for 2 decades, untouched by law. And according to leaks from the U.S., the Soltsevo gang hasn't slowed down. They're still out there, racketeering under the watchful eye of the FSB, the Russian Internal Security, and Counterintelligence Service. And so with a global network and the Russian state's silent nod, the Soltsevo Brotherhood stands tall as one of the world's most formidable criminal forces, rivaling even Mexico's infamous Sinaloa cartel. And they're far from finished. The Camorra. Picture a place where just the mention of crime brings to mind shady characters and secret deals. Italy, a country known for its beauty and history, really has a dark side that has become famous through notorious organized crime syndicates such as La Cosa Nostra. But the infamous Sicilian Mafia isn't the only player in Italy's underworld. This is the Camorra, Naples' very own organized crime group, deeply rooted in Italian life, shaping society and politics with an iron grip. Now, the origins of Camorra can be traced back to the 16th century, where it started off as a local network of gangs, engaging in smuggling and counterfeiting. But as time went on, the Camorra got more organized and turned into this full-blown criminal syndicate with a hierarchical structure and operations all over Italy. Each clan within the Camorra operates independently, but still stays connected to the others. And within each clan, a boss is calling the shots, and a bunch of underlings are helping out. Women also play a big role in the Camorra, acting as go-betweens for different clans or handling administrative tasks. The Camorra doesn't just stick to crime, it has its fingers in politics as well. They use tactics like voting manipulation, threats, and corruption to maintain control, even extending their reach into the judicial system, with prosecutors and judges being targeted for assassinations or intimidation. When it comes to the economy, the Camorra is a big player. Estimates suggest that they account for around 10% of the country's GDP. They happen to be in all sorts of illegal activities, like drugs, extortion, and money laundering. They even have legit businesses paying them for protection. Now, despite all that, the Camorra has been known to step in and provide social services in the area where the government falls short, which only strengthens its hold on the community. But on the flip side, they also contribute directly to the cycle of poverty and inequality in Naples, so they keep breaking it and fixing it in this vicious circle. Efforts to capture the Camorra have been going on for years, with Italian law enforcement trying different tactics to bring them down. The big trials in the 80s and 90s led to the arrests of a lot of Camorra members and shed light on their shady dealings, but their deep-rooted power and influence have made it tough to completely get rid of them. International cooperation has been crucial in the fight against organized crime, with agencies like Europol and Interpol teaming up to tackle issues across the borders. However, even today, the Camorra remain a major headache for Italian authorities, with their firm grip on the community, making it a real challenge to dismantle them. The 'Ndrangheta. November 20th, 2023, a landmark verdict was delivered in one of Italy's biggest mafia trials, targeting the notorious 'Ndrangheta crime syndicate. Over 230 individuals received a hefty prison sentence, marking a significant triumph for justice in Calabria, where the gang is based. The trial was the culmination of relentless efforts to dismantle the 'Ndrangheta, following a sweeping operation that saw 131 arrests across multiple countries from Belgium to Brazil. Dubbed the Maxi Trial, it spanned nearly 3 years, involved prosecuting over 300 individuals, including mobsters, attorneys, and public officials linked to the 'Ndrangheta. But let's pause for a moment. Who exactly is the 'Ndrangheta, and why are Italian authorities so determined to bring its members to justice? Well, today the 'Ndrangheta has superseded Sicily's Cosa Nostra as Italy's most formidable mafia organization, with a reach extending throughout Europe and beyond.
From there, they've spread terror through killings and kidnappings, deadly massacres elsewhere in Europe traced to their rivalry in Calabria.
Originating from economically challenged regions of Calabria at Italy's southern tip, the 'Ndrangheta saw explosive growth in the 1970s. They would funnel ransom money from kidnappings into public works and narcotics trafficking, mainly cocaine. Their notorious activities included the abduction of high-ranking profile figures like John Paul Getty III after his harrowing 5-month captivity in the Calabrian mountains. His family was coerced into paying a hefty $3 million ransom. Since then, 'Ndrangheta has reigned over the Italian world. In a telling report, Italy's anti-mafia investigative directorate labeled the 'Ndrangheta as the absolute dominant force in the criminal world. In 2008, their annual revenue was estimated at an astonishing $48 billion by the Italian research group Eurospes, accounting for about 3% of Italy's GDP. Their illicit empire extends to illegal waste trafficking, racketeering, and even loan sharking, typically offering credit to struggling businesses and then gradually taking over control of them. In May 2023, a coordinated European police operation resulted in the arrest of 100 individuals, targeting their drug and weapons trafficking operations with Latin American counterparts. The subsequent trial became a historic event, sentencing over 230 gang members to a collective 2,200 years behind bars, It took the judges about an hour and 40 minutes to read the verdict. Saverio Razzonale and Domenico Bonavota, two prominent Calabrian mafia bosses, received the maximum 30-year sentences. Following the verdict, the lead prosecutor declared, "Today's ruling means a whole province of Calabria has been liberated from the top brass of the criminal group." Yet, considering 'Ndrangheta's vast influence and power, can this trial truly signal the beginning of their downfall? Time, as always, will be the ultimate judge.